surrender your time. Your enthusiasm and passion for Star Trek will be added to our own. Resistance is futile.
We're here with Chase Masterson from Deep Space Nine. And how are you today?
Great. How are you doing?
Not too bad. You enjoying the ball?
I am having so much fun.
Yeah, no, we all enjoyed the singing last night. That was a lot of fun.
Thanks. It was a blast. It was really fun hearing Max and Armin too. They were spectacular. Yeah, and the sense of playfulness at the ball is just, it's unsurpassed. I think there's really nothing like a British con. And it's just so sweet and so genuine and so playful.
It's a bit more personal than some of the other ones, isn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
And it's your second time here, I think? Or third time?
I think third. It's hard to keep track.
Sure.
I don't know, but hey, it's still working, right? So.
Well, we've got some questions for you. First one is, what was your experience of Star Trek before being involved in Deep Space Nine? Were you a fan? Had you watched much of it at all? Or was it new to you?
Okay, this is the honest truth. I had a boyfriend who was such a trekker, that I was only allowed to call him during commercials. Yes. So I started watching Next Generation so that I could know when we could talk. How embarrassing is that?
Did you kind of resent it for that fact then, or?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No. So I just always often say, "Who's sorry now?"
Fair enough. So, had you auditioned for any other sort of parts in Star Trek before being cast as Lolita, or? I had
auditioned for the role of one of those Dabo girls.
Impella?
What was her name, huh?
There was one called Impella.
No, not Impella. She was to be Jake's girlfriend. And it was in the second season.
Yeah.
And then Avery said something about, no, I want her to date the captain, or something like that. And so I got down to the final 2 for that role. And then Ira Bear actually told me during the 5th season, I had no idea at the time, but he told me then, he said, we wrote the role of Lita for you. So that's something I didn't realize for, quite a bit of the run of the show, is that, yeah, it's kind of nice to have a role written for you on any show, but on a show like Star Trek, it's a real honor.
Yeah, but you started off as very sort of like, you were in the background quite a lot, and then you slowly moved to the forefront and became kind of one of the major characters in it.
Yeah, it's really nice. He also told me that they had started working on the relationship between Lita and Rom during the episode of the Bar Association, and kind of just, trying to inch that forward and phase out Lita and Dr. Bashir. I always say Lita and Dr. Bashir were like the Barbie and Ken of Star Trek, just kind of boring, Lita and Rom are like the
Sid would love that.
The Lucy and Ricky of Star Trek, I mean, there's certainly a lot more room for play.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, drama, comedy, all of the above.
So do you see much of yourself in the character, or do you find, obviously you said the character was written for you, but so do you find you relate a lot to Lita in terms of personality, or?
I think you have to relate to anybody that you play. I could say that of any roles that I've played. I think any actor feels that way. I do love her. I have a lot of respect and joy in who she is. I mean, just being really compassionate and not seeing differences as a negative, but being able to love, and being able to endure things when the romance wasn't easy, and having a certain amount of grace and having a certain amount of playfulness. I mean, she didn't go up to Dr. Bashir even in the beginning and say, "Hey, babe." What she did was pretend to have a cough, and just there's some sweetness to her, and a strength, and an intelligence, a way of getting what she wants without having to wear her strength or her intelligence on her sleeve. I think there's some really nice, gentle things about her.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially who she was named after.
Especially who she's named after.
That's the most important thing.
Lolita. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good.
Good morning. Or good
Morning.
Yes, that's a true story.
Okay.
Lolita came from my name.
Lolita
Was
Fatjo.
that your idea or someone else named it for you? Or?
But the writing staff, you know, it just kind of comes up. I had another character named after me in The Next Generation, named Fatjo.
Oh, yes.
Ah.
I like that episode.
So, you know, they try, you know, writing staffs try to make fun things like
Yeah.
that for people that work on the show, I think.
To
Right.
keep themselves entertained.
Well, yeah, there's that.
So, can you remember your first convention experience at all?
Yes. Well, there's a couple of them. One first convention in the States, and then my first convention abroad, which was in Leicester. And it was just a blast. I was really struck. Of course, the one in Leicester was a lot like this, fan run and very sweet, very playful and active, and you know, we Star Trekked across the universe, and all of that. I loved it. Such joy, and I don't know. I think it's singular. It's a singular experience for the Star Trek universe to have that kind of appreciation. I think, you know, there's so many incredibly talented actors out there who never get to work at all, much less have this kind of passion about what they do and the stories that we hope to get tell. Wow, right?
Yeah, sure.
Seriously, wow.
And I mean, there's obviously the fans are at conventions that they're so in sort of love with the characters and the shows, and they're really involved. Have you had any sort of very positive experiences from the fans?
Generally, I've had some very tough experiences too, to be honest, but generally it's been an amazing, positive run. Very sweet. And I do a lot of conventions, and there's different reasons for that, but I was kind of laughing last night about, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning as we were, I got to lead the crowd in the final song, Bohemian Rhapsody. I tried to find you.
They played it twice.
Yes, I know, I asked them to.
I know.
I made
You were
them.
gone the first time.
Yes, I know, I was gone, I missed it the first time, so
Well,
I made them play
we
the
both
second
got
time.
to do it.
And I was standing there, and I had the camera, and I was playing and dancing and singing too, but I wanted to get pictures of you guys, because it was so much fun. And I thought, you know, people say, why do you do, you know, or do you know, you do a lot of conventions, Chase, and like I said, there are different reasons for that, but that's definitely one of them. I mean, just the joyfulness, and I don't know.
And you know,
it's
it's
really
different.
sweet.
It's different over here too than at home. I mean, personally, I really love the conventions over here for that reason. I mean, we
Yeah.
love dancing to all these fun
Yeah.
songs that we never hear at conventions at home.
I learned the Doctor Who. Finally got it right once.
So there's definitely a different kind of joy, I think, in
Yeah, I mean,
conventions over here.
I think especially this one's quite more personal, and there's a lot more interacting with the stars and the guests.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
you know, we've got
Yeah.
Vegas, other ones all stuck in London. He'll kind of shift to the next area very much.
Yeah,
because,
it's
Yeah,
sonic
you know,
show.
we're
Show's
not really
totally
able to
different, yeah.
connect
Yeah.
in the same kind of way. Also, just one thing that's incredible, and also, as I've seen, very singular to the science fiction universe, is just the way you guys care about the work we do for causes we care about. Your support of our charities and your own charities is so beautiful. And when the woman last night from Teenage Cancer Trust spoke about what they do, I was all in. I mean, of course, why would you not show up for that kind of stuff? It's lovely. And I think that it's a reflection also back and forth in both directions of the stories that science fiction tells. They're rich and deep on a level that cares about the world, and I see that in you guys, and I really have so much respect for it.
Right. So, if we were to sort of reboot Star Trek, or DS9 was to be recast, you know how they've done J.J. Abrams has done the new Star Trek. If they were to read it for DS9, who would you like to play Lisa?
Who would I like to play Lita?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. No one.
Cast yourself.
No one, damn it. I don't know, maybe a drag queen. I think that choice I could allow them to make.
Yeah,
We know a
different
few.
show.
We know several, yes.
Yes.
We know
We
There's
could
a few
cast
walking
that.
around today.
I know, they're wonderful. Misty.
Yes.
I'm on a
Yes.
first name basis, babe. I'm not
Okay. So it's fine. What's your favourite episode that you worked on?
There's so many. I mean, teaching Quark how to be a woman, it doesn't get any better than that, really. But, no, we had a lot of fun in different episodes. I personally loved the episode I did with Bob Picardo. It was
Oh,
lots
yeah.
of fun working with that man. And he's the kind of actor that you have to just, I don't know, wake up really early in the morning to keep up with, you know?
Sure.
He's just brilliant. And we had a little, do you remember the scene where we're saying goodbye and the story I tell? Shall I tell it? All right, so Bob his character is going to take Lita off on the space station,
Yeah.
right? Because
Sure.
because Rom will not profess his love, and Lita is rejected and alone, and so she's going off on off the station onto the shuttlecraft. She's moving away from DS9, and she's going to have her own cafe. That's
Yeah.
the plus to this. So here we go, and we're going to leave, and goodbye, and here we are, we're going to get on the shuttlecraft, and then we hear this voice wailing in the distance. Lita! Wait! Lita, wait! And Bob Picardo says, we heard it the first time. And Rob says, Lita, I love you. And I say, oh, Rom, as I always said, oh, Rom. And we're going to live happily ever after, right? Which is great. But it's not great for poor Bob Picardo because they had not given him an exit line. So what is he going to do, just stand there while we take the scene? Not Bob Picardo, no. So he asked for a line, and as Lolita, or someone mentioned, who did mention this? Oh, Armin mentioned in the talk yesterday, you just don't do that. You don't ask for a line. In Star Trek, the writing is so good, and it's not their policy. It's just not necessary. So it went up all through all 6 offices and came down, and then okay, you can have a line. What do you want to say? He said, oh, let me try it a couple times. And so he did one take, which you guys saw in the final cut, as he's leaving on the shuttlecraft, as Rom and Lita kiss, he follows this woman and he says, excuse me, miss, have you heard about my work with Kama Sutra? Which I thought was very funny, but what he said in the first take, which I thought they should have used, is as he follows her off, he says, excuse me, miss, have you heard about my work on Star Trek Voyager? I mean, the great moments like that are just like so much fun. I think we saw the best show, you know, because we saw every take. I used to love watching after work was over. I would just stay and listen, and it was a lot of fun.
So they get lots of license to do that, just to stay down to the alternative cuts and before the final thing is decided, or is it very much in their hands and you're like...
Oh, completely in their hands.
Yeah.
That's always the case. I mean, some directors edit their own work, but it's very often left in the hands of the editor to a large extent anyway, and nobody has any say.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of directors,
Yeah.
are in on that, but certainly not the actors.
Okay, well, did you have any questions for?
No, Lily, is it okay to do a quick review?
Of course, yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Lolita, whatever your name, Lolita. Excuse me. No. You can call her Lita.
That's okay. That's a good name.
It's a very good.
Here's your coffee.
Thank you.
So we're here with Lolita Fatjo, and we've just got a couple of questions for you about your Star Trek career. And before you kind of got professionally involved with Star Trek, what was your introduction to it as just an entity?
I was not a Star Trek fan. I mean, I knew of the original show, series when I was a little kid, but I never watched it. But in 1988, do I have that correct? We got the big long writers strike, 87, 88,
Yeah,
87. The whole town shut down for months and months and months because of the writers' strike. And I was an actress before, in another lifetime. And so I lived in Los Angeles, and I was pursuing an acting career, and it was going fine until this writer's strike, and it just shut everything down. So I went to work at a factory. It was a long 6 or 7 months, and I got that job through a temp agency. So as soon as the strike was over, the temporary employer called me and said, do you want to keep working there? I said, no, get me out of here. I said, but I wouldn't mind getting a job at a studio to get back into the swing of things, because people needed jobs. Everybody was just vying for jobs. And I lived like 1 mile from Paramount. So I said, I'll take anything at Paramount you can give me. So he called me back and he said, I have 3 jobs at Paramount starting tomorrow. And I wish now I could remember the other 2. I think one of them was Cheers. But he said, they need somebody to type scripts at Star Trek. I said, oh. And that was between the 1st and 2nd season. I said, well, I know Patrick Stewart. I took acting classes from him, and I was friends with Jonathan Frakes, and I thought, okay, I'll do it. What do I need to do? He said, well, you need to know Microsoft Word. Well, I had no idea what that was at all. So I called my best friend, who also worked in a production company, and I said, John, do you know what Microsoft Word is? I need to know it tomorrow. He said, well, come over to my office. I've got it on the computer, and we'll just figure it out. So I was young and naive then. Not as naive as I am now. But anyway, so I got all dressed the next morning after doing this tutorial, and I go to the Hart Building, which is an old building on Paramount, and it's just one exit, one entrance, one way in and one way out. And Gene Roddenberry was still, very active at that time. So it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and I arrived at this office, and I walked into this hallway, and there are 3 offices on each side of it, and there was a man standing outside each one of them, and I recognized Gene Roddenberry. I'd seen pictures of him. So I walk in there, and I'm like, hi, and they said, oh, thank God, you must be the Microsoft Word expert. That was the best acting job I've ever done. And 15 years later, I finally left there. So that's how I got started. I had no interest in production at the time, but I fell in love with it. And as Chase said, and I'm sure that Max and Armin shared this with you yesterday, these conventions are such a joy and such an extra thing that people don't get in their lives. And it's become my life. Now I manage these guys and place them in conventions all over the world and get to travel and still be a guest at these things. And that's what I do. So it's been 20 some odd years now. But if you'd ever told me, I would not have believed it that long ago. So.
I think when you were on stage on Friday night, you mentioned about Star Trek being like a big family and working with the teams both on set and off the set. And do you think, has there ever been, in your experience, any other television show that's like that? Was Star Trek quite unique to work on in that respect?
Well, I'm sure that there are plenty of other shows that do have that same sort of family during the day. But we don't just keep, these shows are not just during the day. Here we are, hundreds of miles away from home, and we're together. So it just keeps going as a family unit that way. And there are other shows, certainly, that have conventions, but not to the, like Chase said, not this much, and for this long. It's almost 50 years now. So, and I'm sure it'll keep on going. It's gone up and down, but the fact that a convention like this is still able to go is really amazing.
And do you feel that, have you gone on to working in other shows, and have you tried to kind of bring that same camaraderie to them? Do you think it was just a special kind of mix of people?
Well, I do think it's a special mix of people, but I also think it's because it's Star Trek.
And was there quite a distinct difference in working on, say, TNG to Deep Space Nine to Voyager?
There was TNG and Deep Space Nine were wonderful to work on. I mean, DS9 is by far the favorite. I worked on all 3 of those shows, and DS9 to me was the best of all the shows. Working on Voyager got difficult because the people that started there, that were the head of those shows, they all left and kind of left it in a state of, there was too many young people running that show, Voyager. So I found that it just wasn't fun anymore. I didn't want to go to work anymore, so I quit. But I knew that I wasn't leaving the Star Trek world because I was so, much involved in the conventions. So for me, it was good. But the first 2 shows, TNG and Deep Space Nine, were wonderful to work on.
And if they were to do a new Star Trek series on television again, would you consider getting involved?
No. No, I can't imagine. I mean, I'm involved in Enterprise, and I've never even seen the show because I manage actors from that show, and they're really good friends of mine. Dominic was here last year. But no, I could not see myself ever going back to full-time working like that in a series. It's a lot of work for everyone, the actors, the producers, the writers. It's a huge commitment of time.
So you've kind of answered our next question, which was, do you keep in contact a lot with the old casts? But you said you actually manage quite a lot of the track actors across all the series.
Yes, yeah. And my philosophy about that is I I won't work with somebody that I'm not comfortable working with in this situation, and so therefore they're mostly my friends and very good friends. So that makes it a joy. I mean, it's just fun to travel like this. So well, I'm going to Australia in 2 weeks with Bob O'Reilly and J.G. Hertzler, and they go in costume.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's a lot of fun what I do get to do.
So were you involved with the casting of any of these people in the show itself?
Not really. I mean, no. I mean, they did, the writers on most of these shows were very nice in trying to include people like myself on some decisions, but no, it's not my decision at all. But, you know, they would run ideas by us, and I think they cared a lot. The writers on Deep Space Nine and TNG really cared what the final product was going to be.
And in terms of the Star Trek now, with the J.J. Abrams reboot film in 2009 and the new one due in 2013, have you seen that reboot film?
Have I seen the first
Yeah.
film that came out?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
What did you think of this kind of new incarnation of Star Trek?
Well, I thought it was fun, because I think what was fun for me to see that movie was that they did bring in some little things that if you really knew Star Trek or you had worked on the show, you would catch. I don't think things the general public might have gone over their head. I thought it was good. I mean, I can't say I loved it, but will I see the next one? I don't know. Probably. But
Well, thank you very much for
you're
your time.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make it so.
Prepare to attack. All hands battle station.
Don't worry, we will get to the bottom of this.
All right. Ask is a tall ship and a star steered by.
I don't want excuses, I want answers. Am I authorized to enter the neutral zone? Now, what do you think that tells me about your character?
Captain's log, stardate 3541.9.
Program complete. Enter when ready.